Here's the air traffic control tower speaking to that fire.
So, as we remember, Donald Trump, last year in November, the FAA slashed a whole hell of a lot of flight ops, a lot of air traffic controllers and other Federal Aviation Administration employees who were fired. And that was with the excuse of, DEI and these issues that had gone on for too long, where people were getting hired for jobs that they were not qualified for and that they were not necessary to. Don't forget the Newark air traffic controller fire happened that on the same day. Yes, the reason that a fire truck was already there was because there was a separate incident. And this has been now it's been something that air traffic controllers were already raising the alarm bells on. And then when all these job cuts happened and the budget being slashed, that only raised the concerns even higher.
Fire truck.
And now this happened last night.
Unfolded.
Truck 1 Company, LaGuardia Tower, requesting to cross 4 at Delta. Truck 1 Company, cross 4 at Delta. Truck 1 Company, 4 at Delta. Frontier 4195, just stop there, please. Stop. Truck 1, stop. Stop, Truck 1, stop. Stop, Truck 1, stop. Yeah, 646, I see you collide with vehicle here, just hold position. I know you can't move. The vehicle's there responding to you now.
Pete Montine, you're at Reagan National Airport for us. You're our aviation correspondent.
It's so chilling to hear that audio.
Walk us through what you're learning, and I know you're learning a lot, about how this investigation is unfolding.
What is very clear, Wolf, from the early data is that this crash occurred at very high speed. This Air Canada flight operated by Jazz Air Aviation had just touched down on runway 4 there at LaGuardia. That's one of the main runways there, and was still decelerating when this collision occurred at around between 115 and 90 knots. So that's the unit used, the nautical unit used in aviation, meaning this crash occurred between 130 and 100 miles an hour. You have to think of this like the force you would see in a T-bone collision that you would see on the highway. Two cars traveling at highway speed, that's roughly about 100 miles an hour of collision force. This is roughly the same. Of course, it will be up to investigators to determine exactly where and when this collision occurred, although I want you to look at the early data from Flight Radar 24 in which they plot out point by point which point Air Canada Express Flight 8684 was going down the runway and then approached taxiway Delta, which is the point you heard in that air traffic control audio where this truck, referred to as Truck 1 on the air traffic control audio, was told to cross across the runway. Then you heard the tower controller there in the control tower at LaGuardia frantically try to stop that truck. Then in that data, you see a bit of continuation of data there to taxiway Echo. That's about halfway down the runway. That seems to be where everything ultimately came to a stop because of the physics involved here. I want you to listen now to this very telling air traffic control audio that occurred about 18 minutes after the collision itself, in which a controller in the tower seems to say, "I messed up." Here.
That wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know I was here. I tried to reach out to my stuff. We were dealing with an emergency earlier. I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
Important to remember here that this fire truck was responding to another
incident. Yes. Okay. So right before this happened, air traffic controllers were already juggling a different late night emergency on the runway. And a United Airlines flight was supposed to take off and twice had to abort. Said there was an odor that was coming from the back of the plane. but there were no gates available. And so the pilot and the controllers went back and forth. The controllers were trying to reach the airline and find a spot to put the plane. And you can hear in the audio recordings, like, it getting increasingly more chaotic as it becomes more of an urgent situation. The flight attendants in the back of the plane reported that they were feeling ill because of whatever this odor was. And so the pilot's like, we need to get to a gate. We need to get to a gate right now. And so the air traffic control, they dispatched these fire trucks to go to the plane because there was no available gate to park the airplane. All while they're trying to manage the rest of the traffic. And like, this shit is so stressful. You have to be locked the fuck in because it can result in deadly accidents. Like we just saw it happen last night. So suddenly that's when the frantic warning cuts across the radio. Stop, 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 stop. Truck one, stop, stop, stop. And then the Air Canada flight landed, crashed into one of these fire trucks that was trying to get to the United Airlines, to the United aircraft. And the pilot and the co-pilot of the Air Canada flight were killed. And so the fact that there was already this emergency happening, air traffic controllers have long been grappling with issues like this being an incredibly demanding, stressful job, being short in staffing, for, facing all these different government shutdowns, not having a modern equipment. And this is an incredibly stressful job under the best of circumstances. Were the pilots landing the plane? They were landing. So they had sent the fire truck out there because there was no gate for the United Airlines aircraft. And then right when the truck was going, that is when the Air Canada flight was landing because the traffic controllers were having to navigate all of this.
On the airport involved.
Marshy. Thank you for the resub, Marshy. Also, glad that you are back. We are all glad. We're all glad that Marshy is back. Marshy is back, safe and sound. There's a reason they have mandatory retirement for controllers. Yeah. You also only can get hired as an air traffic controller as a person with high cognitive levels. There's extensive training. It's a highly selective process. And there's a shortage of people who are air traffic controllers.
A United Airlines flight that had to abort its takeoff twice. There was concern about some odor coming from likely the brakes there. It's especially hard on an airplane when you have to stop very quickly in aborting a takeoff. Some big questions here about the communications, where the actual breakdown occurred. We know, even from the investigation of the January 29, 2025 mid-air collision, only a few paces from here at Reagan National Airport, that radio transmissions can be imperfect. Pilots can do what's called stepping on
Tim Pool's hairline. Thank you for the 5 gifted.
One another, where they're both transmitting at the same time, making transmissions and radio transmissions garbled and unintelligible. And so that can be something that is at play here. Also, of course, the fatigue of the air traffic controllers. This occurred very late at night, and we know air traffic controllers are really stretched to the limit. Many working 6-day weeks of 10-hour shifts, mandatory overtime because of a years-long nationwide shortage of air traffic controllers. Of course, something the NTSB will look into here, as it is just beginning its investigation and just gathering all of the evidence. The airport closed until at least 2 p.m., likely could be closed later as investigators sort out everything on the scene there.
Miles, you know a lot about these kinds of horrible developments. The NTSB is leading the investigation right now. What is it likely focusing on, at least right now?
This, Wolf, is all about air traffic control, and in this case, one particular controller in the tower cab who gave permission, cleared for landing that Air Canada regional jet, and also gave permission for that emergency vehicle to cross the same runway at the same time.
I'm in flight school, and even my small local airport tower has people working 60 plus hours a week. It's a thankless, stressful job. The problem is people that love aviation want to be pilots, not ATC. Yeah, and like, why would you want to be ATC, especially these days? What is enticing? Like, what are the advantages here going into a job like this when for years this has been a long-standing problem, working overtime, of course not being paid enough, dealing with outdated equipment, being incredibly stressed. This is such a stressful job, even under the best of circumstances. And when these accidents happen, of course, the investigations that are required and the risk of being the person who is ultimately found responsible for it. They used to have really good income and benefits that semi-outdid the stress, but it's not competitive anymore. Like, to me, there's just nothing. I don't know why. I don't know why someone would choose to be an ATC these days.
Listening to him on the radio and the recordings, as it becomes evident what is going to happen is very difficult, frankly, because it's the realization of it becomes quite evident, put it that way. He tries to stop the emergency vehicle, but it was obviously too late. So the context of this, though, Wolf, is that you've got, an air traffic control system that for a long time has been bursting at the seams. Air traffic control staffing is still quite deficient. There's mandatory overtime required for air traffic control personnel. There's probably some fatigue issues that will be looked at by the National Transportation Safety Board. And one other thing, Wolf, this runway at LaGuardia, runway 4, has a runway status lighting system, which is a technology designed to...
The NTSB was sending an investigator for this emergency and had to beg TSA to let them through as they had been stuck for 3 hours in Houston.
Stop and prevent what happened here. It's supposed to detect active use of the runway and turn on some red lights on those approaches to the runway, which would indicate to that truck that this was not a good idea to cross that runway. It will be interesting to see if that system was operating properly, and if it was, did the emergency responders focused on their mission to deal with yet another emergency, maybe didn't see it.
I thought it was interesting and fascinating, Miles, that 18 minutes after the crash, an air traffic controller appears to say, "I messed up," to a pilot who witnessed the crash. Listen to this.
That wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know. I was here. I tried to reach out to my stuff. We were dealing with an emergency earlier. I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
All right, Miles, I want to point out that determining root causes of accidents can take maybe, based on my experience, and you have a lot more than I do, at least
Wolf made it sound like that was some smoke and gun here.
Maybe longer, and often involve multiple contributing factors. How will these communications factor into this investigation?
Well, I mean, it's there on the tape, Wolf, and it is hard to listen to that controller now has to carry that with him. That was his mistake. But it was his mistake specifically and individually, but that's put in the context of a system that has set
Elon,
him
thank you
up
for the
for
42
failure.
months.
It's a system where they are overworked. LaGuardia Airport is one of the busiest pieces of concrete on the planet when it comes to getting airplanes in and out. The system
Even the
is
pilot showed
blinking red,
solidarity
has been
with
blinking
the
red. You go
ATC.
back to more than a year ago, the mid-air collision at Washington National Airport. The question I have in my mind is, when is something significant going to change? And what I'm talking about here is reducing the tempo, the number of flights. Everybody wants to fly. The air traffic system is vibrant. Airlines are doing well, or at least up till the oil shocks recently, they're doing well. The question is, should we be slowing down this tempo to recognize the fact that we have a system that is beyond its capacity?
Well, for more on this, let's bring in the CNN's aviation analyst, Peter Gultz. It's good to have you, Peter. What more do we understand now about this
Trains.
deadly collision? I mean, based on your decades of experience in aviation, you know, what questions have we had answered at this sort of, you know, in this early stage, and what are we still waiting to hear?
Well, this accident, Becky, is really eerily similar to the accident that occurred over a year ago in Washington, D.C. You have very crowded airspace. You have a control tower that has been habitually understaffed.
Yeah.
And you
Butterstains, thank you so much.
It's in the evening where
Thank you.
visibility
Lucky
is
Waddles,
difficult.
thank you for 5 months.
Listening to the tower tapes preliminarily, it really is going to focus in on the instructions given by the air traffic controller and his response to the emergency vehicle. The vehicles all have transponders. The emergency vehicles travel the airport every single day, and they do it safely. This is a very rare occurrence. Something happened when the emergency vehicle requested and believed that they got approval to cross the runway.
So take a listen to this audio recording of an air traffic controller in the tower shortly afterwards.
That wasn't good to watch.
They keep
Yeah,
They
I
keep
know.
going
I
with
tried
this.
to reach out to my stuff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier. I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
Yeah, I think there's
Mandatory note determining the root causes of accidents can take a year or longer and involve multiple contributing factors, of course. Yeah, what do you make of what we just heard there? And then, you
This is
know,
like
I guess
the
what can be
fourth
done about
time.
these incidents?
Well, the NTSB is on the scene. You'll get a briefing from them later today. But I think that underscores that the language used to approve the crossing of the runway may not have been as precise as required. And, you know, the reality is this is the world's busiest airspace. There are 5 large airports within 25 miles of LaGuardia. And you have a tower that has 11 positions, and you have 33 controllers assigned to it. There is a staffing level of 60 that has been requested. They're
No, it was his phone.
understaffed, they're overworked, and
Yes.
mistakes are made.
Yes.
I just want to get your sense of...
You know what? I think we should listen to that recording one more time. I think that's the story here.
The new data that I know has been revealed in the past sort of few hours or so. The Air Canada plane was going at 104 miles an hour before it hit that fire truck. Is that normal speed at that point of its sort of journey?
Yeah, absolutely. My guess is this aircraft has a touchdown speed of about 135 knots. It probably had touched down perhaps 300 yards up the runway. The pilots, their attention is solely on the runway ahead of them. They are not looking left or right. They
Yeah.
are looking directly at the runway. So 104 knots seems about right. The question is the driver of the truck, The emergency truck, I believe, believes that he was given permission to cross the runway. And that's where the attention is going to be.
Joining us now is David Susi, a CNN safety analyst and a former FAA safety inspector. David, thanks for joining us. I want to show you and our viewers images and the video shot by a passenger on the plane, Jack Cabot. The passenger took these images from the tarmac. As you can see, he and his fellow passengers had just made an emergency exit.
Man.
These still images show the extensive damage from the impact. The plane's nose completely obliterated. The fire truck looks like it had exploded, and you have investigated and analyzed, as we all know, hundreds of these flight accidents over the years. Just after this collision, after midnight, what stands out most to you?
Well, you can see clearly that the damage to the front of the nose is so significant, it's about 25 to 30 feet of the front part of the aircraft is missing. So because that's gone, you can see that the aircraft goes from a nose down position to a nose up position just because the weight behind.
It would have been tower ATC frequency. Yeah. Yes. So the Air Canada flight got clearance to land just as the fire trucks were dispatched because there was no gate for the United aircraft to stop at with whatever emergency they were experiencing. I think it seems pretty apparent that you had it was like one air traffic controller who was having to navigate this emergency on the ground while also clearing flights taking off and landing. And this happened at a time this happened at night when they are much more lightly staffed too, which it's already that they're understaffed. They're already understaffed, overworked, but then also the time of night that this occurred at, where they have even less people on staff because there's less traffic and this kind of stuff, right, isn't supposed to happen. They hit the water tank straight on in the fire truck. Water is incompressible. It's essentially like the pilot's hitting a concrete wall. God, it's so sad.
Behind the wheels is more than what's in front of the wheels now. So you can see that it's changed and moved up forward. So one of the things that really strikes me is that because that aircraft hit directly in the middle of the fire truck was moved forward and the aircraft was damaged in the nose. This could have been much, much worse, Wolf. Had that truck been 40 feet further or 40 feet back, then that it would have struck against the wing, the fuel cells, the engines, and would have created a huge fire and would have had many, many fatalities. So as tragic as this is for the two that we've lost, there could have been much, much worse. And just out of pure luck, that airplane hit in the middle of that fire truck and reduced the number of fatalities significantly.
Yeah, 2 fatalities, the pilot, the co-pilot, 41 passengers, other crew members were injured, some significantly. Will investigators seek out videos and images from other passengers and crew members in hopes of finding more information?
Yes, they will. And there's the FAA as well will be investigating this from an air traffic perspective to see what the FAA failed to do. And that would be the air traffic controller. At this point, it appears, listening to the video or listening to the audio from that, is that the truck was cleared to go across this runway for a different incident, but was cleared to go across, and almost immediately the air traffic.
Look, this is very, very blurry. But I mean, yeah, so you can see, man, just the fucking timing of this. Here comes the fire truck right as this Air Canada plane is landing, and it just fully smashes into it. Oh my God. Yeah, I think the pilots probably died instantly.
Controller started saying, "Stop, stop, stop, don't go
It
onto the runway."
honestly
But it was too
seems like
late.
a miracle
The
more
fire
people
truck had
didn't
already
die.
entered the runway. So one of the things I would look at as an investigator is, number one, why was it cleared to go when there was aircraft coming in? But number two is, when he said stop, 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 did he evaluate if it was better that the truck continue, and should he have said go faster to get to the other side? I'm worried that when he said stop, that the fire truck said, okay, we're going to stop, and stopped in the middle of the runway.
Yeah.
So it's too early to know exactly those details, but as an investigator, I'd be looking at that time sequence to see what all happened.
And right now, David, what especially worries me are the
Wait, what did he say? Hold on.
Go faster to get to the other side. I'm worried that when he said stop, that the fire truck said, okay, we're going to stop, and stopped in the middle of the runway.
Yeah.
So it's too early to know exactly those details, but as an investigator, I'd be looking at that time sequence to see what all happened.
And right now, David, what especially worries me is the fact that the nation's air traffic controllers are clearly overworked, often working 6 days a week,
Yes.
10-hour shifts.
Yes.
How does that impact the nation's aviation safety system?
Well, it has a great impact, but I don't think it's a direct safety impact necessarily. Each one of the airports is under strict mandates now to make sure that they're meeting the requirement of 2 controllers and that they're overseeing it properly. As you recall, less than a year ago, we had a very significant issue with a lot of air traffic controllers that were not manning properly each of these air traffic control centers. But as far as I know at this point, I think the mandates have been put into place to make sure that there's proper staffing is there. And if there's not, then Wolf, what they're doing for the first time in history that I'm aware of, they're actually reducing the number of flights based on capacity of what that air traffic control center can handle. So I think that it's not a direct safety concern for passengers, but it does have impacts as far as what availability of the aircraft, and as you know, the delays that are being caused at the airports, both now from the TSA and as well as from the air traffic controllers.
Yeah, there's a lot that needs to be investigated, and they have to come up with some answers to make sure it doesn't happen again. David Susi, thanks so much for joining us.
Following breaking news this morning.
Good night, Mr. Sonic Jen. Oh my God. We can't suck forever. Holy shit. Thank you for the 25 gifties. Whoa. Whoa, baby. Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know, man. That felt kind of untrue at the end there when he was talking about the mandates. When he's like, it's it's gotten better though, where if they don't have enough air traffic controllers, then they reduce the capacity for the flights, or they reduce the number of flights. I don't know. I couldn't tell if he was. They were talking about air traffic control being overworked and understaffed, but then he kind of mentioned at the end there that things have gotten a lot better, which I'm sure there's been improvements in some airports, but this is a years-long problem, and there are just simply not enough air traffic controllers. And they are currently working to modernize the air traffic control system, because that's been an issue, is the outdated equipment that they have had to work with. Being able to keep 2 people on duty doesn't matter if those 2 people are massively overworked, not given the tools or conditions. Yeah, it's also again, even under the best of circumstances, this job is so stressful.